The Slave South, a very prominent region in American history that we fellow Americans are very proud of. Not really. The South sucked and made a lot of U.S. history dark and depressing. In its time, it was the largest slave empire in the world and haunted the meaning of freedom for centuries. With the nickname Cotton Kingdom, the South produced over 3/4 of the world's cotton on large plantations. On these plantations lived over half the slave population of the entire South. They usually had a large house for plantation owners, along with slave quarters, smokehouse, and a chicken coop. The masters were head of the house and ruled over his wife, children, and slaves. Women were seen as weak and a praised compliment to the husband. The plantation was always a hierarchy under male dominance, which became a practice known as paternalism. This ideology manifested into the minds of slave owners that slavery benefited slaves. An attempt to justify slavery, saying white men is helping those of an inferior race by providing food, shelter, in exchange for work. While plantations made up half the slave population, the other half worked mostly small farms. Sometimes they even labored aside their owner. 1/8 of the population worked domestic jobs in towns and cities. They worked aside their owner in small businesses like bakeries, a tailor, and barber shops. Most slaves got 2 pairs of clothes a year, along with a pair of shoes. They started working at very young ages and labored till the end of their life. Kids started working the fields at age 12, while the elderly watched the young and spun yarn. Work on the fields started at sunup till sundown and was not an easy task. Slaves were pushed to the physical and psychological limit with heavy workloads and a consistent high-stress environment. Whites were of a superior race to blacks. In theory, slaves were powerless to their masters, but masters were consistently met with retaliation. A slave rebellion became a great fear of Southern whites ever since the Cuban Slave Rebellion. But slave freedom proved a religious dilemma because slavery was idealistically backed by Southern beliefs. Some African Americans lived in freedom after natural rights came about in the Revolutionary War. Most of South's whites did not own slaves. Plain folk consisted of storekeepers, mechanics, school teachers, etc. Most of the South lived as yeomen, people that owned farmland and raised a family. The majority of plain folk did not hold major political power. Wealthy plantation owners controlled the political climate in the South. They shifted political views with expensive campaigns and concentrated democratic beliefs. It turned for the South support for slavery. The people were promised low taxes and freedom. All in all, the South sucked, slavery sucks, and the scar the region left on this country might be able to be concealed but never healed. Not in our lifetime, at least. Slavery was abolished in 1865, but inequality has lived through the century, and the racist culture born in the South is still present today.